My name is Derek, and what happened to me and my girlfriend on our camping trip in the Appalachian Trail still haunts me to this day. I'm telling you this story because I need you to understand something. When you're out there in the woods, miles away from civilization, you're never truly alone. It was late September of 2019, and my girlfriend Emma and I decided we needed to disconnect. You know, get away from our phones, social media, all of it. We'd been planning this 3-day camping trip for months. The spot we chose was about 8 miles into a trail in Western Virginia, remote, but not impossibly so. We weren't amateurs. I'd camped plenty of times before, and Emma had gone with her family growing up. The first day was perfect. We set up our tent near a small clearing, surrounded by thick woods on all sides. There was a stream about 50 yards away, and the sound of running water made everything feel peaceful. We cooked hot dogs over the fire, told stupid jokes, and watched the stars come out. By 10 p.m., we were exhausted and crawled into our tent. That's when I first heard it. A snapping sound, like a branch breaking under someone's weight. Emma was already asleep next to me, her breathing slow and steady. I sat up listening. The woods are never silent. There are always insects, owls, small animals moving around. But this sound was different. It was deliberate, heavy. I unzipped the tent flap, just a few inches, and peered out into the darkness. Our fire had died down to glowing embers, casting barely any light. I couldn't see anything beyond the immediate campsite. I told myself it was probably a deer, maybe a raccoon. I zipped the tent back up and lay down, but sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, Emma noticed it first. She was making coffee when she called me over, her voice tight with concern. Around our tent, in a nearly perfect circle, were footprints, boot prints, large ones. Size 12, maybe 13. Maybe it's from yesterday when we were setting up, Emma suggested, but her eyes told me she didn't believe it. I knelt down and examined them. The prints were fresh. The edges were sharp, not weathered by wind or time, and they formed a complete circle around our tent. Someone had walked around us while we slept. My stomach dropped. "We should pack up," Emma whispered. "We should leave right now." But I convinced her to stay. In daylight, with the sun streaming through the trees, it was easy to rationalize. Maybe it was another camper checking to see if we were okay. Maybe they didn't want to wake us. It was stupid reasoning, but fear makes you desperate to find normal explanations for terrifying things. We spent the day hiking, trying to shake off the unease. By nightfall, we were back at camp. This time, I made sure our fire burned bright and hot. I kept a flashlight and my hunting knife within arm's reach inside the tent. Around midnight, I woke up to Emma gripping my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. She wasn't breathing. She was just staring at the tent wall, her eyes wide with absolute terror. Then I heard it too. Breathing. Not ours. Someone else's. Right outside the tent, inches from where we lay. Slow, deliberate breaths. In and out. In and out. The fabric of the tent moved slightly with each exhale. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab Emma and run, but I couldn't move. My entire body was locked in primal fear. The breathing continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. Then a voice. "I can hear your heartbeat." The voice was male, raspy, almost amused. And he was right. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Emma's hand found mine in the darkness, and we squeezed each other until our fingers went numb. The breathing moved around the tent, slowly, deliberately, like he was savoring our fear. Then he stopped at the tent entrance. We heard the zipper start to move, slowly, one tooth at a time. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed my knife, lunged forward, and slashed at the tent wall where I thought he was standing. I heard a grunt, confirmation that I'd made contact, and then the sound of someone crashing through the underbrush, moving away from us. "Run," I screamed at Emma. We didn't bother with our gear. We didn't grab our packs or sleeping bags. We ran through the dark woods with only my flashlight, branches whipping our faces, roots trying to trip us. We ran for over an hour until we hit the main trail, then kept going until we saw the lights of the ranger station just before dawn. The rangers went back to our campsite with us later that morning, accompanied by 2 state police officers. What they found made my blood run cold. Inside our tent, placed carefully on Emma's sleeping bag, was a Polaroid photograph. It showed Emma and me sleeping the night before, taken from inside the tent. He had been inside with us while we slept. But that's not the worst part. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Next time, I won't leave." The police never found him. They discovered a small camp about half a mile from ours. Evidence that someone had been living in those woods for weeks, maybe months. They found more photographs, dozens of them. Other couples, other campers, all sleeping, all unaware. Emma and I broke up 6 months later. Not because we stopped loving each other, but because neither of us could sleep anymore. We'd wake up in the middle of the night, certain we heard breathing, certain someone was watching. I haven't been camping since. I don't think I ever will again, because I know the truth now. When you're out there in the wilderness, you're not escaping the world. You're entering someone else's hunting ground, and sometimes they like to play with their prey before they strike. My name is Ashley, and I need to tell you about what happened at Lake Thornwood in the summer of 2021. This isn't easy for me to talk about, but I think if I don't get it out, I'll lose my mind completely. What started as a girls' weekend retreat turned into something that still makes me question reality itself. It was supposed to be a celebration. 4 of us, me, my sister Rachel, and our 2 best friends from college, Jade and Morgan, had rented a lakeside campsite for the weekend. We were all turning 30 that year, and we wanted one last adventure before life got too serious. You know, kids, mortgages, all that adult stuff. Lake Thornwood was perfect. Private campground, only 6 sites total, and ours was right on the water. The lake itself was maybe a quarter mile across, surrounded by dense pine forest. The woman who ran the campground, an older lady named Mrs. Chun, seemed nice enough when we checked in, though she did give us one strange warning. "Don't go out on the lake after dark," she said, her smile fading. "And if you hear anything from the water at night, ignore it. Just ignore it." We laughed it off. We figured it was part of the local charm, you know? Small town spooky stories to add atmosphere. We should have listened. The first night was amazing. We grilled steaks, drank wine, told embarrassing stories from our college days. By midnight, we were all feeling good, maybe a little drunk, sitting around the fire. The lake was perfectly still, reflecting the moonlight like a sheet of black glass. That's when Jade heard it first. "Did you guys hear that?" she asked, her head tilting toward the water. We all went quiet, listening. At first, I didn't hear anything except the crackling of our fire and the occasional cricket. But then, carried across the water, I heard it too. Crying. A child crying. "Is someone out there?" Morgan asked, standing up and walking toward the shore. The crying continued. It sounded like a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, sobbing uncontrollably. The sound seemed to be coming from the middle of the lake. "Hello," Morgan called out. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The crying stopped immediately. Complete silence. Even the crickets had gone quiet. Rachel grabbed my arm. "That's weird, right? That's really weird." "Maybe it's a loon or something," Jade suggested. "Some birds make sounds like human voices." but I'd heard loons before. This wasn't a bird. This was a child crying. I was certain of it. We went to bed uneasy, but convinced ourselves it was nothing. We were 4 intelligent women in our late 20s. We weren't going to let some weird noise ruin our weekend. I woke up at 3:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone when I heard Rachel's sleeping bag rustling. I assumed she was getting up to pee, but when I looked over, her sleeping bag was empty. "Wretch," I whispered. No answer. I unzipped my sleeping bag and crawled out of the tent. The campfire had died completely, and the darkness was absolute. My phone's flashlight barely seemed to penetrate it. "Rachel," I called louder this time. Then I saw her. She was standing at the edge of the lake, her back to me, wearing just her tank top and underwear. She was perfectly still, not moving, not responding. "Rachel, what are you doing?" I walked up behind her and touched her shoulder. She was ice cold, and when I moved around to see her face, her eyes were open but unfocused, staring straight ahead at the water. And that's when I heard the crying again. Except this time, it wasn't coming from the middle of the lake. It was coming from directly beneath the surface, right in front of where Rachel stood. Before I could react, Rachel took a step forward into the water, then another step. She was walking into the lake like she was in a trance. "Rachel, stop!" I screamed, grabbing her arm and pulling with all my strength. She fought me. My own sister, who'd never hurt anyone in her life, started clawing at my face, trying to break free. Her nails raked across my cheek, drawing blood, but I held on, dragging her backward, away from the water. That's when Jade and Morgan came running out of their tent. "Help me!" I yelled. "Something's wrong with her." Together, the 3 of us wrestled Rachel to the ground. She was thrashing, making these horrible guttural sounds, nothing like her normal voice. And the whole time, that crying continued from the lake, getting louder and louder, almost deafening. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Rachel went limp in our arms, unconscious. We threw everything in the cars and drove Rachel straight to the emergency room. The doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong with her. No drugs in her system, no head injury, nothing. She woke up 6 hours later with no memory of the incident. But I needed answers. The next day, I went back to the campground alone. I found Mrs. Chun and demanded to know what was really going on at that lake. She didn't want to tell me at first, but I wouldn't leave. Finally, she sat me down and shared the truth. 23 years ago, a family had camped at that exact site. They had a 7-year-old daughter named Emma. On their last night, Emma went missing. They found her 2 days later at the bottom of the lake, drowned. The official ruling was accidental death. But 3 months later, Emma's father confessed on his deathbed. He'd held her under the water himself during a psychotic episode. His wife never knew. The guilt destroyed him. Ever since then, Mrs. Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper, Emma's been in that lake. Every few years, someone hears her crying, and every few years, she tries to take someone with her. Usually children, but adults too sometimes. Anyone who hears her and comes too close. I felt sick. "Why don't you close the campground?" Mrs. Chen looked at me with tired eyes. "And go where? This has been my family's land for 3 generations. Besides, she's bound to this place. Closing the campground won't change that. I just try to warn people. Most listen. Most, but not all. I've done research since then. Over the past 2 decades, there have been 4 drownings at Lake Thornwood. All ruled accidents. All happened at night. And when I looked up the dates, they all occurred in late June, the same time of year Emma died. Rachel refuses to talk about that night. She says she doesn't remember, and maybe that's true. But sometimes I catch her staring off into space with that same unfocused look she had at the lake's edge. And last week, she told me she's been having dreams. Dreams about a little girl underwater, reaching up, asking Rachel to come swim with her. The dreams are getting more frequent. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help her, because I think Emma got what she wanted that night. Not my sister's body, but something deeper. A connection. A hook lodged in Rachel's soul. And I'm terrified that one day my sister's going to hear that crying again, even though we're hundreds of miles from Lake Thornwood. And next time, I won't be there to pull her back. My name is Francis, and I'm a park ranger at Redwood National Forest in Northern California. I've worked this job for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of strange things. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what I found at Site 17 in October of last year. Part of my job is checking on the remote campsites deep in the forest. These aren't your typical drive-up spots. You have to hike at least 5 miles to reach them. Sometimes more. They're popular with serious backpackers who want complete isolation. Site 17 had been reserved by a couple from Portland, David and Melissa Thurman. They checked in on October 12th for a 4-day stay. On October 16th, they were supposed to check out, but they never did. When the office tried calling their emergency contact numbers, no one picked up. That's when they sent me to investigate. I made the hike out to Site 17 on the morning of October 17th. It's a beautiful spot. A small clearing surrounded by massive redwoods with a creek running nearby. As I approached, I could see their tent was still set up. Their car was back at the trailhead, so they had to be somewhere in the area. "Hello," I called out. "Park Ranger, Mr. and Mrs. Thurman?" No response. The campsite looked off. The tent was closed, but the rain fly was hanging loosely, not properly secured. Their backpacks were leaning against a tree, but they'd been opened, contents partially spilled out. A pot sat on the fire ring, filled with what looked like several days' worth of rainwater. I approached the tent slowly. Something in my gut told me this wasn't going to be good. I've found lost hikers before. Usually they just wandered off trail and got disoriented, but this felt different. "I'm coming inside," I announced, more for protocol than anything else. I unzipped the tent. Empty. Both sleeping bags were there, laid out like someone had just gotten up from them. Personal items were scattered around, phones, a book, glasses, but no people. Then I saw the photos. Polaroid pictures, at least 30 of them, spread across one of the sleeping bags. I picked one up. It showed David and Melissa sitting by their campfire, smiling. Normal camping photo. I picked up another. Same thing, them cooking dinner, looking happy. But as I went through more of them, my blood ran cold. The later photos showed them sleeping. Multiple shots from different angles, taken throughout the night. Then photos of them during the day, but taken from a distance, like someone was watching them from the trees. Photos of them arguing. I could see the tension in their body language. And then the final photos. They showed the interior of the tent. Both David and Melissa, sleeping peacefully. But in each progressive photo, there was someone else. A figure, standing inside the tent with them, watching them sleep. The person was wearing dark clothes, face obscured by shadows. In the last photo, the figure was holding a knife. I immediately radioed for backup and began searching the area. That's when I found the fresh dirt about 20 yards from the campsite. The ground had been disturbed recently. I could tell from the displaced pine needles and the slightly different color of the soil. I started digging with my hands. 3 feet down, I found it. A blue rain jacket. Melissa's, according to the registration info I had. It was covered in blood, but there was no body. Just a jacket. I kept digging, more frantically now, but there was nothing else. Just that bloody jacket, buried in the middle of nowhere. When backup arrived with cadaver dogs, we searched a 2-mile radius around Site 17. The dogs picked up scent trails leading in multiple directions, but they all eventually stopped at the creek. Like whoever we were tracking had used the water to cover their trail. We never found David and Melissa Thurman. They're still missing, but we found other things. A mile upstream from Site 17, we discovered a small cave system that wasn't on any of our maps. Inside, someone had been living. There was a sleeping bag, canned food, water bottles, and hundreds of photographs pinned to the cave walls. Photos of campers, different people, different times of year. Some of the photos were dated back to 2015. 6 years of watching people, stalking them, documenting them. The FBI got involved. They identified 17 different individuals in those photos. 4 of them were listed as missing persons. All had been camping in the Redwood National Forest when they disappeared. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. As investigators cataloged the photographs, they found something else. Mixed in with all the Polaroids were digital photos, printed out. Recent ones. They were from other national parks. Yellowstone, Yosemite, Grand Canyon, Olympic National Forest. Whoever had been living in that cave, stalking campers, taking people, they'd moved on. They were still out there, just in a different location. Last month, I received an envelope at the ranger station. No return address, postmarked from Colorado. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. It showed me, sleeping in my own bed, in my own home, 20 miles from the park, taken through my bedroom window. On the back, written in the same handwriting I'd seen in that cave, were 4 words. I liked watching you. I've installed cameras around my house, new locks, an alarm system, but I can't shake the feeling that it doesn't matter. He knows where I live. He was inside my property, close enough to take a photo through my window. And the worst part, the FBI thinks it's not just one person. The timeline of the photos, the different locations, they believe it's multiple people. A network of them, sharing information, maybe even working together. People who live in the wilderness, watching campers, selecting victims. I still do my job. I still check on those remote campsites. But now I'm checking for something else. I'm looking for signs that someone else has been there. Watching. Waiting. Because I know the truth now. When you're camping in those isolated spots, you're never really alone. Someone's always watching from the tree line, taking photos, learning your patterns, deciding if you're worth taking. And the terrifying thing, by the time you notice them, it's already too late. David and Melissa Thurman checked into Site 17 on October 12th. Somewhere out there, they might still be alive. But I don't think they're camping anymore.